So every evening we've been seeing a different name of Gurudev. And as we had explained before, these names tend to have two different aspects are spoken of. One is a Mahatma's general, or specific actually I should say, specific characteristics. So you'll see they'll look different, they'll talk differently, they'll live in different places, they might wear different clothes. So one person might really enjoy sweets, another person enjoys spicy food. So these kind of differences will be present, but they're only very superficial differences. So some speak about different things that Gurudev would have done specifically. So he was Gita Jnana Yajna Pracharakaya. He was one who gave lectures on Gita. He was Angla Bhasha Viduttamaya. He spoke on the scriptures in, as Prashant had mentioned, in English, Angla Bhasha. And so those are things maybe specific to Gurudev. But then there are other names which speak about the transcendental nature of these Mahatmas. That nature which is right behind all of the superficial differences, and which in fact is the same nature present in all of us. So we'll chant a few of these names and then we'll see tonight's name. Okay, so everyone can chant along. Om Samabuddhaye Namaha. Om Samabuddhaye Namaha. Om Satchidanandaya Namaha. Om Satchidanandaya Namaha. Om Sarvahita Chintakaya Namaha. Om Sarvahita Chintakaya Namaha. Om Satya Sankalpaya Namaha. Om Satya Sankalpaya Namaha. Om Santushtaya Namaha. Om Santushtaya Namaha. Om Sadhave Namaha. Om Sadhave Namaha. Om Sumanase Namaha. Om Sumanase Namaha. Om Suhride Namaha. Om Suhride Namaha. Om Swayam Jyotishe Namaha. Om Swayam Jyotishe Namaha. Om Sthita Prajnaya Namaha. Om Sthita Prajnaya Namaha. Om Sthita Prajnaya Namaha. Om Sthita Prajnaya Namaha. So this name means salutations, Namaha, to one who is Sthita Prajna. Prajna means wisdom, and Sthita means one who is very well rooted in wisdom. One who is very firm in what they know, that wisdom. So what wisdom? If we look, right, every form of knowledge that we really have is all very temporary. Temporary knowledge, changing knowledge. And it's very limited also. So if you were to take some paper and make a list, okay? If you were to make a list of all the things that you know for sure, that list would be very short. In fact, your friends might say it's even shorter than you think. So you have some list, they'll say, look, you don't even know that, you better erase those few, right? So shorter. Then if you were to make a list of all the things which you don't know, that list would be infinite. You could spend your whole life and you could never finish the list of things that you don't know. In fact, there's so many things on the list that you don't know you know to put on the list also. So many things we have absolutely no idea about. And that which even we think we know is always changing. So you would see, even in modern science, how many things have changed. Big Bang Theory, now they're saying they have to update that theory. They're saying, in fact, there's no time that the universe started, that in fact it was infinite. If you look back to even 50 years ago, 75 years, 100 years, they'll say that smallest particle is the atom. And now if you look into that atom also, they discovered so many subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, electrons. Then they said, hold on, even what we think we know about those subatomic particles, we don't know. If we try to look at the behavior of an electron, we can't even find out where that thing is. Sometimes they find that it breaks all the rules that we think we know, and it can be in two places at one time. So just a little while ago, we were so sure this is the smallest thing. Now we found that's not even the smallest thing. And even below that, they're saying there's energy. And energy vibrating gives rise to all of these different particles that we know also. And Vedanta tells us, even those things which we relatively think we know are all relative to our body, mind, and intellect. You might say, well, look, if I use a high power microscope, I can see things that my eyes can't see. Correct. But we would say, even that microscope, it only makes the power of your eye stronger. It doesn't tell you something that your eye cannot access. It only gives you something, whatever you look at, whatever data you get, has to somehow be accessible to your body, mind, and intellect. So there's something, some magical thing that nobody knows about that's not accessible to these equipment. We would never have any way of knowing it. No matter what fancy equipment you get, it has to come within the framework of your understanding. So everything is relative, except one knowledge. So if everything is relative, how can any person, any Mahatma, be established in knowledge if it's always changing? Can you say, I can become established in the ocean? Ocean waves are always changing. But our Shastras say that there's one knowledge which is always shining, which never changes, which is your own self. How do we even know that that self is real? See, so many things we just went through that have changed. Okay, atom to proton to electron, all these things. All of these things have changed, but I know they have changed. How do you know that they've changed? Because you yourself are a conscious being. It's like if you have this light in the room, and using that light you can see chair, table, watch, mic. And then when satsang finished, they'll pack up the chairs, they'll pack up the table, mic. So the room will change. But because that light is there, I can see the changes. I can see, hey, there used to be a mic and now they've moved it. So we know change because you're able to know. That knowing is true knowledge, what our scriptures say. Your ability to know, the awareness that powers your awareness of other things, that awareness is that knowledge, Sthita Prajna, knowledge. See, Bhagavan is that light of knowledge within us, that light of consciousness. When you come to realize, hey, see, when you sit in meditation, you slowly let go of all those other thoughts that are like the objects in the room. They're coming and going. And suddenly you become aware that you're aware. You become aware of that light that's shining in you all the time. That knowledge, our scriptures say, you will spend many lifetimes running after all these other types of knowledge. So then when you become great Einstein, see, you might feel I'm no great Einstein now, but you have so many infinite lives. Don't worry, in some lifetime you'll be Einstein also. So you'll be Einstein and you'll come to realize, even if I spent infinite lifetimes trying to learn, there will always be things I don't know. But my ability to know is always there. And then when I start searching for that, that's when I've become spiritual. So this is what all of our great Mahatmas speak about, and this is that knowledge that Gurudev was established in, Sthita Prajna. So very, very nice. Sing a small bhajan with Guru, right? Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Om Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Om Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Brahma Vishnu Sada Shivaya, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shivaya, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shivaya, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shivaya. Hara 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 Mahadeva, Hara 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 Mahadeva, Hara 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 Mahadeva, Hara 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 Mahadeva. Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Om Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Om Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. Om Jai Guru Omkara, Jai Jai Satguru Omkara. So now, the feature part of our address, Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So we've been seeing chapter 18. And chapter 18, we've seen a lot of topics already. This is one of the longest chapters. 78 verses. I looked it up today. 78. So, the first question that Arjuna asks is, what is this difference between tyaga and sannyas? Two words which on the surface look very similar. Tyag means to give up, renounce, and sannyas also means to give up. So what is the difference between these two? Arjuna is very curious. And what's given is, tyaga is a means to get us to this goal, which is sannyas. That same thing we just spoke about, sthita prajna, that knowledge is sannyas. It's the state of knowledge. Tyaga is all of the preparation that we have to do to get to that stage. Just like when you have to go to sleep at night, you get ready to go to sleep. You can't go to sleep in your office suit, right? If you're wearing your coat and boot and pants and everything, it's very uncomfortable to sleep. So you have to put on nice, comfortable pajamas, soft flannel ones, right? None of this itchy stuff. So you have to wear nice, comfortable pajamas. You have to brush your teeth. You have to, take out all clip and everything from your hair if you're a girl. So many things you have to do, right? Then you have to get under nice warm covers, have the fan on, make sure your room is ready, turn off all the lights. Then you snuggle under your covers. And then you have to wait for sleep. If you think about it, there's nothing, see, you prepare and you prepare and you prepare. But sleep, how it happens, we don't even know. 1 minute you're there, maybe you're even talking to your spouse, next minute you're asleep. So, Tyaga is like preparing our mind. It's called Chitta Shuddhi. We do all the things to make our mind more and more peaceful. The process that's given is Karma Yoga. When the more and more I give up every small action even I do to God, the more and more peaceful I become. So I do that, I keep doing that, my mind becomes peaceful. Just like you do a lot of things to make your mind peaceful before sleep. But then that state of awareness is like sleep. It's a state that happens all by itself. But you prepare, and then that state happens. So Tyaga is, I give up all of these selfish attachments, all of these things that make me stressed out, and then one day that knowledge will become shining all by itself. So that's what's given as this difference between Tyaga and Sannyas. Then Bhagavan goes into this dissection of karma, all different aspects of karma. First we start with, there's a triangle. To do any action, you need jnana, knowledge, you need the action itself, and you need some karta, some doer of that action. So jnana, I have to know that something called ice cream exists, okay? Now I know ice cream is there. It's my goal. Then I have to be there. Someone has to be there to want the ice cream, so karta is there. Then the act of eating the ice cream is the karma. So these three, Bhagavan said, what are the sattvic, tamasic and rajasic aspects of all of these three. We won't go through all of them now, but that knowledge which is sattvic is that knowledge which shows us that there actually aren't a million different things. There's only one thing in this universe, and that thing is God. Just like if you go to the shop where it's a clay shop, and the clay shop has a lot of different pots. So some short pot, tall pot, thin pot, chubby pot, all kinds of pots are there. And you might look and say, oh, so many different things are here. Which one should I get for my house? But actually, all we're looking at are different forms of clay. If you took out all the clay, is there any pot left? No. So just like that, in this universe, we might see different things. Okay? You see all these different people, different objects, but actually they're all made up of Bhagavan. So that knowledge, being able to see that, is called sattvic knowledge. And all sattvic karmas, actions, are those that are done very unselfishly. Because when you see everything as being made up of the same thing you're made up, you're very nice. See, who are we most nice to? You might think that we are the most nice to our loved ones. We're most nice to our boss because we're afraid of our boss. But actually, we're most nice to ourself. If you are taking bath, right? Shower, and you accidentally poke yourself in the eye, right? Then the first thing that happens is your hand comes up to rub your eye. Why? Because if there's any pain in any part of the body, you go to take care of it. Because you love that body. So in the same way, that one who sees everything as God, themselves also, they see if any being is hurt, if anything is happening, they'll go and help them. Serve. Because why? There's no selfishness. When everything belongs to you, nothing also belongs to you. So you're very unselfish. And you become na ahamvadi. You don't become egotistical. You have no ego. Because look, ego is only when you're trying to prove that you're better than someone else. But if only you is there, who are you going to impress? Only you. So there's no one for you to impress, for you to put down. There's only Bhagavan. So that karta is very sattvic. Then we saw sattva, rajas and tamas as it relates to our buddhi, our understanding, how we act. We said one with very sattvic buddhi, they know the secret between pravritti and nivritti. That means when to do and when not to do. Sometimes we get in big trouble because we mix these up. Sometimes we're not supposed to open our mouth, nivritti, and we open our mouth. And then we get in trouble. Or you're supposed to say something and you say nothing, and the problem becomes worse. So I was supposed to do something and I didn't. The knowledge of knowing when to say, when to act, when to speak, when not to do it, that is that buddhi, sattvic buddhi. Alright. And then at the supreme level, pravritti means I should know when I should be doing this chitta shuddhi, when I should be doing this karma yoga, and when I should drop all of that also and only rest in Bhagavan. Because here's the brain twister, even the desire to know God is a hindrance to knowing God. How can you see, if you say, I want to know myself, at some point you have to stop wanting and you just have to be yourself. So, at some point even our desire to know God has to be dropped, and then only God is left. So that's also this pravritti, I should want to know God. Then only I'll give up all these other things. But at some point, even I drop that and only God remains. Very interesting difference between pravritti and nivritti. Finally, dhiti. Dhiti means my ability to pursue and work hard. Some people work really hard at doing the wrong thing. Some people, you do some nice things with 70% of your time. Some people are working 100% of their time to cause problems to other people. A lot of people know that too. They're saying, yeah. So, dhiti means, that sattvic dhiti means, I persevere at doing the right things in life. So, I could spend a lot of my time and effort to make a lot of money. You can do that. But should you? Or should you make enough so that you can live your life and spend the rest of your time thinking about God? So all of these things are finding that balance. Whew, that was just the recap, okay? So now we're seeing chapter 18, where Bhagavan takes up this sattva, rajas and tamas as it relates to $1,000,000 question of happiness. So we're seeing chapter 18, verse 36 and 37. Everyone can chant. Sukham tvidanim trividham.
Sukham tvidanim trividham.
Shrinu me bharatarshava.
Shrinu me bharatarshava.
Abhyasadramate yatra.
Abhyasadramate yatra.
Dukkhantam cha nigacchati.
Dukkhantam cha nigacchati.
Yattad agre vishamiva.
Yatat agre vishamiva.
Pariname mritopamam.
Pariname mritopamam.
Tatsukam satvikam proktam.
Tatsukam satvikam proktam.
Atma buddhi prasadajam.
Atma buddhi prasadajam.
Atma Buddhi Prasadajam.
Atma Buddhi Prasadajam.
So Bhagavan says, Sukham Trividam. There are three types of Sukham, Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamas. And I'm going to explain them, and Shrinu me Bharatarshaba. Please listen to what I'm going to say. Now, the big question is, why is Bhagavan now going into happiness, this Sukham? It's because if we really look at our life, every single thing we do is to gain some joy. Sukha prapti, dukkha nivritti. We either want to get something that will make us happy, or we want to remove something that's causing us pain. So if I have some thorn in my foot, I really want to remove it because it's giving me pain, and then I'm happy. So our whole life is spent this way. And things also change over time. So at one time, I'm so happy I'm getting married. Then, a little while later, I'm so happy I'm getting divorced. We're looking for that same happiness in two different things. Or, at the ashram, there's always a mic on the car that comes past of the man that's asking for scrap iron. He's always asking for iron. So you have scrap iron in your yard, and every day you look at it, it's giving you a headache. So then he comes by and he says, it took me so long to understand what he was saying. Someone else told me he's asking for iron. I didn't know. So I thought he was just a man with a mic. But anyway, so he likes that iron. So you're so happy to get it off your lawn, and he's so happy to get it. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So this Sukham, if we look, we see so many different ways people pursue happiness, so many different things. But the one common factor, lowest common denominator, is everyone's looking for happiness. In Shastras it says, whether you're a little ant, Pipilika, or you're Brahmaji, you're all looking for happiness. You'll see if you go to try and squish that ant with your finger, it will try and run away from you. Why? Because I don't want to get squished. Please leave me to be happy. So what is the secret to happiness? There was once a beggar, and he didn't have any legs, so he had to beg. And every day when he was sitting there begging, he used to see this man walking by, going to work. So he used to say, oh, if only I had legs like that man, I'd be so happy. Look, he's going everywhere, he's so happy. That man, he's walking to go to work every morning, and he's saying, every day when I go to work, I see this man going on his bike. If only I had that bike, then I would be so happy. Every day I have to walk to work. If I had that bike, I would be there so fast. That man on that bike now, every day he's biking to work, and at his job, he always sees the boss. Boss is always driving a car. He says, man, riding this bike, I spend so much effort. By the time I get office, my shirt's sticking, it's hard to ride that bike every day. If only I had that car. And his boss has boss. So boss, he's driving some Yaris, trying some Toyota Yaris. And his boss is driving BMW. It has, in America, in Canada, all these places that get cold, that car has a button that you can press and the seats become nice and warm. So he said, look, my Yaris, it has no seat warmer. His car has a seat warmer also. If only I could have that BMW. Then everybody would think I'm so cool. Actually, I'm so warm because I have seat warmer. But if only I had that BMW. So then what's the secret to happiness? One wants legs. One with legs wants bike. One with bike wants car. One with car wants nicer car. We're all like this. Anything we get, we're looking for what's the better thing. right? So that's, even that happiness is so elusive, and yet we're always looking for it. So Bhagavan's so kind to us, he's going to give us the secret to that. So first is even this word sukham. Ka is a word that means space. Space. Kham gatayati. That comes in a Upanishad also. Kham is that space. Su means good. So happiness is when you're in a good space, good place. And dukkham means when you're in a bad place. So you know, sometimes people will say, look, I haven't had my coffee yet, I'm not in a good place right now, please don't talk to me. Right? Not because I'm physically in a bad place, but mentally I'm not ready to talk to you, not had my morning coffee. So happiness is being in that right place. But what is that place? Sattvic happiness. First we'll see that. Actually, before we even do that, we have to do an analysis of where does happiness reside. Is it, right now there's two things that we have. Me and the world. Me and the world. Is happiness in me or is it in the world? And everyone likes to say, oh, I know, it's in me. But how do we know that? We had to conduct an analysis. So if happiness is in something, like this watch, if happiness is in something, there are three factors. One is that the thing must have the same amount of happiness. Like if you have headache and you buy Tylenol. Tylenol says 200 milligrams. It will always have 200 milligrams. See, there are some doctors here. They'll tell you, it says 200 milligrams, it has 200. So if this has 200 milligrams of happiness, it has to always be same 200 milligrams. Which means that if I have that thing and you have that thing, it should give us the same amount of happiness. But look, this watch might give me so much happiness. You say, look, I have 10 watches, okay, that only gives me this much happiness. So, different amount of happiness it will give to different people. Strike one. Strike two now is that it should give the same kind of happiness to me at every point in time. So in 2010, Tylenol will have 200 milligrams. In 2011, it will still have 200 milligrams. But you see, year 2000, what gives me so much happiness is toy car. 2016, toy car isn't giving me any happiness. Real car will give me happiness. Why? Because time has changed. So one time I wanted one thing, next time I want something else. So strike two, that thing gives different happiness at different times. And everybody should get the same kind of happiness from everything. But one person likes green chubby. These days, do they make green chubby? Some people like red chubby. Some people like purple chubby. Some people like pear chubby. Some people like no chubby. They're going to go for something else. So, if the happiness is in the chubby, everyone should get happiness from the same chubby. But everyone says, no, I like different kind. So then we see happiness cannot be in things. Happiness must come from some other place. So, Bhagavan says that sattvic joy comes from this yatra abhyasad ramate dukkhantam nigacchati. So, that joy which comes from abhyas, practice. See, ramate means to enjoy. That joy which comes when you practice and which bestows this end of sorrow That joy is sattvic. What joy? Yattat agre visham iva, then amritam. That joy which, when you're practicing it, at first, agre, at the beginning, it feels like poison. But the more and more you practice, it starts to feel like nectar, amrit. What does that mean? Very interesting. In any spiritual practice, right? It will always feel like poison first, and then slowly, it'll start to feel like amrit. Why is that? We saw this last night. We've actually been seeing this in chapter 18. All of us are bound by our attachments to things in the world. So when I have my coffee in the morning, I'm very happy. Someone takes it away, I become very upset. Why? Because my happiness is bound up in that coffee. And any addiction, you'll see, to start getting over that addiction is very painful, yes or no? Very painful. Why? Because your system is addicted to it. It craves it. So what we say is our body craves things from the senses. Our eyes crave seeing something nice. They all want to go movie town, okay? See Jungle Book or Fast and Furious or Batman, whatever. So eyes want to see something nice. Ears always want to hear something nice. You please tell me how nice I'm looking today, how great you think I am. Okay, I want to hear nice calypso music, whatever it might be. Ears want to hear something nice. Tongue wants to taste something nice. That one is our big problem. Always want to be tasting something really good. So if someone says, look, I'm going to put you on an all-fruit diet, you say, you must be fruity. I am not having all-fruit diet. Right? Because why? Our tongue really likes all puloi, sahina, alus, doubles, everything. Aloo pie, not just aloo, sorry. So, why? Tongue likes to taste something nice. Skin likes to feel something nice. So I like to wear my flannel pajamas. Don't try to give me anything other than my comfy flannel pajamas. All of these things, all of these addictions that we have, keep us from doing any real spiritual sadhana. You want me to come stay at the ashram? Can I bring my own bed and mattress? I can bring air conditioner with me? Can I bring my hair straightener? You're telling me I have to go without all of my things when I come? Some people you see, they go for 2-day vacation and they bring the biggest box. You could fit a whole person inside to go for 2-day vacation. Why? They want all of their comforts that they're used to. So we're addicted. To start that spiritual practice takes so much weaning away of all of these attachments. So that's why when you first start to do tapa, japa, all of these things, your body will say, look na, you can do japa tomorrow. You can do sideways japa. You can lie down and do japa. You don't have to sit up straight. Right? Your body will always try and wiggle its way in, right? But to withstand that, to say, that joy, I don't need it now. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to give up all of these attachments. You put in that effort, and then it will feel like poison, but then the more and more free that you become, the more and more it starts to taste like amrit. Why? Because anytime you go someplace, you don't have to be toting a huge bag. Some people have a huge bag. Anything you need is in that bag. Why? Because they want all of their comforts. But you become very free. You don't need anything. You're happy all the time. That joy is sattvic joy. Independent happiness. That's considered this sattvic joy. So then, in that pure self, it says what? This Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. Atma Buddhi means that mind which has turned away from all the senses and is looking inward starts to gain all of that joy of the self. That joy from being just with yourself and happy. It's prasad, grace. And it's jam means to be born. That joy is born then. If you find that you are not feeling happy, it's because you're not at peace with yourself. In Sanskrit, the word for health, again, we have a lot of doctors, so this is interesting. The word for health is swastha. Sta means to stay. Swa means in yourself. So your natural state is to be healthy. Disease is something unnatural which enters. So when you have fever, then you feel unhappy. Why? Because normally you have a normal temperature, you're fine. But when you have fever, your temperature goes up, all new ache and pains start, and they feel horrible. So you take medicine to take away that fever. So happiness is our natural state. Anytime we become upset, it's taking us away from our self. Swastha means to be situated in yourself very happily. And this happiness also is based very much on our frame of mind. There was once a man who was born blind. And he used to beg God, Bhagavan, please, in my next life, please show some mercy on me. Do not make me blind. You please give me some mercy, right? Have some mercy on me. So in his next life, Bhagavan gave him sight. Bhagavan said, okay, I'll be nice to you. And he gave him sight in one eye. But remember, in your next life, you don't remember previous life. So this man is sitting there now crying, Bhagavan, you cursed me with eyesight in only one eye. Why would you do that? Why couldn't you have been more merciful? So last life he couldn't see at all. This life Bhagavan gave him something. And yet he's still complaining. It's only our vision that stops us from being happy. Happy in our own self. See, tat sukam satvikam proktam. That joy from this Atma Buddhi, from just focusing your mind on the self, that joy is very sattvic. And in Upanishads it's given one very beautiful statement that our self is both infinitely far from us and infinitely close to us. How can both of those things be true at the same time? Imagine you have come to some new place and you're looking for the washroom. Looking for the washroom, you really had to go. So you're looking. You say, my God, where in this place is this washroom? Looking everywhere. And then someone says, hey, hold on. It's right behind you. Then you turn around and the door is right there. Oh, good. So, when you were facing away from it, it was infinitely far. Why? Because in every direction you look, no washroom. But it's also infinitely close. It's right behind you. The self is the same way. As long as we're looking out into the world for our happiness, it will always be infinitely far from us. Because we're just looking in the wrong direction. The moment we turn, Gurudev used to say, you turn into your self. Once you do that, that self is right there, just waiting for you. But it's both infinitely far and infinitely close. You see the profundity of our Shastras. And we like to think that all of these other, so many Western ideas have been perpetuated, that only one way is correct. That only modern things are good. But see how much we have in our own scriptures. Where else will you see such a profound statement? And yet we ignore. There was once a woodcutter, and he was chopping wood one day, and he found some very shiny rock. But he didn't know what to do with it, so he took it home, and he used it to chook open his door. Chook open. So his door was closed, always used to shut all the time, so he kept it open using this rock. Now he had a childhood friend who had moved into the city. And that friend, after many years, decided to come and visit. Comes inside now, and they're having some nice chai, masala chai. And friend is looking around. His friend is a jeweler. And he looks around and he sees that rock. He said, "Oh my God, do you know what that is?" And the woodcutter said, "Well, many years ago I found it. It's just holding open my door. I don't know what it is." He said, "You fool, that's a diamond. You know how much that thing is worth?" He said, "I had no idea. It was right there." He said, "That's worth more than 1,000 houses that you might have. 1,000 years of your life is in that one thing. So valuable, and you didn't even know." Our scriptures are the same way. They are a diamond that we carry around with us, and we don't even know it. One auntie once told Gurudev, "Gurudev, I love the Gita so much. In my puja room, I have a special spot just for it, a special seat. And it's covered in such a wonderful cloth. I got that cloth from Benares. Beautiful silk, I have it wrapped. And every day I do aarti." And Gurudev said, "So you never opened it? You never open it and read it?" She said, "No, but I do aarti for it every day." He said, "Look, you just spend one day and read it." Someone once told Gurudev, "I have been going through this Gita so many times, and I still don't understand what's so great about it." He said, "You might have gone through Gita so many times, but has Gita gone through you? Even once?" Gurudev was very witty, he had all these very nice sayings. So, if we have something so valuable, and we find other people aren't paying attention, it's first because we ourselves have not paid attention. So that Sattvic Sukham is that one who knows the value of what they have. And they don't need to go anywhere else for happiness. Okay, now we'll see Rajasic Sukham. विषयेन्द्रिय संयोगात् यत्तद् अग्रे मृतोपमम् परिणामे विषमिव तत्सुखं राजसंस्मृतम् That rajasic joy is that which is born from samyoga, the joining of what? Vishaya and Indriya. Vishaya means object, sense object, and Indriya means our senses. So we already went through that. Eyes, movie town. Nose, I like to smell that hot kachori frying. You like to smell that. Ears like to hear nice music. Tongue likes to taste. Skin likes to feel. This joining between these two things bring the rajasic joy. So any joy that I get from getting something, rajasic joy. But remember, anything I get will also someday have to go. Anything that comes has to go. So that joy is rajasic because it's not permanent. And very interesting, it says, Yat tat agre amrita. Agre means at first it feels like amrit, and then later on it feels like poison, visham. Why is that? Because for anyone, when you're using up all your senses, at first it feels very nice, but very quickly your senses become addicted. And then, in Bhaja Govindam, it's given so nicely, you become old, but your desires are still very much young. Okay, so we'll sing that verse, right? Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Govindam Bhaja Mudamate,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Govindam Bhaja Mudamate,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate,
Angam Dalitam Palitam Mandam,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Dashana Vihinam Chatam Kundam,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate,
Vitto Yati Vihitva Dandam,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Tadapi Namuncha Yasha Pindam,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam,
Govindam Bhaja Mudamate,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate,
Govindam Bhaja Mudamate,
Govindam, Bhaja Mudamate.
So it says there's one old man, Vriddaha, and he even has this dandam to walk with, stick. And yet his teeth are falling out, his hair is gray, or maybe he doesn't even have hair, and yet his desires, that Asha Pasha, has not let him go. He's still tied down to them. So you see, some people, why is it that we only ever see very old people driving convertibles? Nice fancy convertible car. Why? Because when they were young, they had this dream of buying nice fancy car that when the top is down, the wind will blow through my hair and I will look so cool. Then you're 50, 60, whatever, and you had to work so hard, so many years to get that convertible, but now hair is gone. There's no hair to blow through, for the wind to blow through. And you're driving around thinking you look so hot stuff, right? There was, I love this joke. There was this girl, she is 20, 25, and she married an 88-year-old man. So her friend said, hey look, why did you marry him? He's so old, he's 88. She said, I know, he told me he was 98. Why, you think? So, why do people do that? Because even the age to enjoy all those things have passed. But your mind is still so attached to those desires. You're not thinking about God, nothing. You're worried about getting married at that age, getting a car at that age. It's silly or not? So that desire, that rajasic sukham, which always comes from getting something, the more and more you become addicted to it, the more and more you have to keep on acquiring. And you'll never get enough to satisfy you. And what happens? We have only so much prana in this body. And we use it all up in trying to get these things. That's why if you see those, this is bad, but when you always have those aunties, they'll entice you, okay? They'll say, look, I cooked this nice food, come sit. And then once they have you sitting down, it's a list of problems. This thing hurts, that thing hurts, I couldn't sleep, my veins. So long the problems are, right? Why? Uncles, they'll come and tell you, beta, look, I had this problem, my back pain has been, why? Because during our young years of life, we kept consuming so many things that wore out our body and our limbs also. When you live sattvic life, you're always eating fruits, eating healthy things, exercising. Then when you're older, you don't have that so many problems. So that's why this Rajasic Sukham, it tastes at first like Amrit. And then slowly it becomes like poison. Very strong words. Okay, now we'll see Tamasic Sukham. Yadagre chanubandhe cha Sukham mohanam atmanaha Nidra lasya pramadottam Tattamasamudahritam Okay. That tamasic sukham comes from what? Nidra, sleeping. Again, that's both sleeping literally and figuratively. So physically, this tamasic sukham comes from the joy I get from afternoon nap in the hammock, right? Sleeping till 10 o'clock in the morning. That is tamasic joy. We do get joy from sleep, but if we sleep too much, it's not good, right? And then, what it means figuratively is that someone who's always engaged in tamasic joys, they're asleep to the spiritual truth. They're asleep to that truth. So even if someone tells them, hey, why don't we go satsang? Say, no, that's the time I like to get my second nap for the day. So you can go to satsang, that's all right. So I'm not awake to that higher truth, in higher pursuit in life. Next word is alasya, laziness. This one is great. So many funny things you can see when it comes to humans and laziness. One funniest thing I saw was, one boy said, my mother told me to vacuum my room. So what I did was I went into my room, closed the door, I looked up vacuum noises on YouTube, and I played the noises and took a nap. So my mother thinks I'm vacuuming, but it's just the sound of the vacuum she's hearing. I thought that was a very good idea. I wish I had known about that when I was a kid. But that's laziness, alasya. Or so many inventions also are there. I had mentioned some of them in satsang before. One of them is, if you've ever eaten pasta, in the video they'll show, you have to put the fork and then turn it to get that pasta on the fork, right? So they have a fork that has a motor and it will turn itself. So you just stick it and it will turn the pasta for you. That's height of laziness, I feel. Don't even want to move your wrist. So alasya, finding joy in laziness. Pramada, pramad means inadvertence. So teacher tell you, study chapter 6 for your test, you go and study chapter 7. Or they say satsang starting at 6, you show up at 7. You're just making mistake also. You're just not paying attention. Pramad. And one type of joy, which I think all of us would have seen, is some people glorify ignorance also. You try to tell them, hey, you shouldn't use styrofoam, it's bad for the environment, you shouldn't use plastic. They say, I don't want to hear about that. I don't care. Why? I'm happy to be ignorant. Or you say, look, you know what's going on, these politics, these things are affecting our community, we can make a change. They'll say, I don't care about that. You're such a nerd, why do you care? Right? They'll even make fun of you also. So what is that? I'm so happy not knowing things. That's also a type of pramad. So that's why in our Shastras is given, one of the duties of every single person, every spiritual student, is swadhyaya. Swadhyaya na pramaditavyam, it says in Taittiriya Upanishad. That means all students, every day we should spend some time in spiritual study, reflection. Never fall from that. Because it's our duty to become informed. Shouldn't succumb to this laziness, pramad. Very good. So the last thing is very briefly, Bhagavan just sums everything up in the 40th verse. Says, Nattadasti pritivyam va
Natadasti pritivyam va
divi deveshu va punaha
divi deveshu va punaha
sattvam prakriti jair muktam
sattvam prakriti jair muktam
yadebhi syatri birgunehi
yadebhi syatri bhirgunaihi
yadebhi syatri birgunehi.
yadebhi syatri bhirgunaihi.
Okay. So Bhagavan says that this entire cosmos that is upheld by Prakriti is comprised of these three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Everything has sattva, rajas and tamas. All of us also have different amounts of sattva, rajas and tamas. So it's not to say that you should use this to go and tell everybody else what they should do. This is about what we can do to improve our odds. So right now our balance might be more in rajas and tamas, and we want to bring that down and increase our sattva. And remember, sattva is intelligent application of rajas and tamas, pravritti and nivritti. We should know when to do things, when not to do things. In fact, that's the intelligent thing. It's not just knowing something. It's knowing when and how to use our talents. There will be people who maybe they're not very worldly, but they're so spiritual, they don't know a lot of worldly knowledge, but they live such a happy, good, productive life. Why? Because they know when to do things and when not to do. And some people, they have all of the chances in life. They'll go to the best universities. They'll have all the support from their family, from their community. And they can still destroy their life because they don't know what to do and what not to do. So that's why it's very important to have that balance. See, these things cannot be learned in a university. These things can only be learned in our shastras. That's why spirituality is not optional. It should be mandatory. All of us need this knowledge. How to apply our other knowledge correctly. Okay, so very good. That brings us to end of night 103. Plenty topics that we've gone through so far, as we would have seen, and we're going to continue tomorrow.